And welcome back to a rather spirited conversation we're having this morning in respect of the crime laws. Anthony, before we went to the commercial break, I was just about to raise a point that I believe needs to be discussed here. You were mentioning that an individual can be arrested and charged and dealt with under the law for not providing certain information when an investigator comes forward and requests certain information.
And you know.
And you know, or you're expected to, you ought to know, as the wording goes.
No. You know that the person is a gang member, or you ought to know he's a gang member, and you know the whereabouts, and you don't provide that.
Okay.
To the inquirer.
It sets me up to ask this question then. Doesn't that scenario or circumstance
put people in danger?
Put the individual in a dangerous, precarious situation based on what we would consider to be a catch-22? You don't want to snitch because you may endanger yourself or your life or those of your loved ones by doing so. But at the same time, when you don't provide that information, you are charged and you're held liable for not doing so. Doesn't that put you in sort of a pickle?
Yeah, it puts not only citizen, I mean, a professional as an attorney. Say for instance, a potential client called me and said, listen, they want me, I need to go to the police station, but, and the police, for whatever reason, may be listening to my conversation. Then they come to me and say, listen, we want, where Mr. X there? So,
But aren't you bounded by confidentiality with your client?
Well, this provision doesn't seem to contemplate that. It doesn't make an exception to that. So, I don't know. It is a very, very, very serious concern. In the break we were discussing that perhaps the intent of the law is to have citizens take their responsibilities as citizens, and that they assist the police and the law enforcement authorities. But of course, whilst that may be a very noble intent and one that is necessary, given the spate of crime, how do we balance that with the realities which exist in our society?
I appreciate this point, because I think one of the things is we know we can put together what the intention of the law is, but we also have to be very realistic about what's taking place in the streets. And we know people who they call snitches, which means you rat out information, are oftentimes targets.
Yes.
So it is a very difficult choice to be made. And
we're
going to see how it's enacted, which isn't necessarily the way we should view our laws. But I also see where in an era where we keep on talking about a collective responsibility, where a part of the police department's messaging is see something, say something, stop something, it shows where we do have a responsibility as citizens as well to play our part.
Yes, certainly. The unfortunate reality is that not about 99% of us would not be able to just pack up and leave where we live. We don't have that luxury. So it's a hard task. And the thing about it is that the way the legislation is written, I'm not quite sure if it can be challenged as being unconstitutional, as perhaps maybe going too far. So the unfortunate fact is that seems to me at this point in time that it's a law that may be there on the law books, and persons may subsequently be charged as a result, because we know what the reality is, that many people may be very forthcoming when such inquiries are made. But there are, I believe, a very, very good provision, which I think was necessary a long time, is that providing a benefit to a gang member, so that this captures or goes to the issue where people may, for instance, be providing money or even weapons and stuff like that. And so that aspect of it, I think the legislatures may have gotten right.
Anybody who subsidizes a gang in Belize,
who knowingly
guns,
provides a benefit,
ammunition, money.
Are they looking?
Whatever else they may need.
are they looking at the structure though? I ask because I brought this up during the commercial break as well. In the United States, there's what is known as a racketeering, influence, and corrupt organization.
And I think
right?
the concept in that legislation, you see it very clearly here, no, in such a provision.
Because when you look at the gangs that are operating in Belize, right? Those are organizations that have cash flow, they have resources, they have all these things in place, but they're not legitimate in terms of the business that they carry out. These are drug dealers, these are hired guns, these are all these negative things that are contributing to the crime and violence in our society. Is it then that these specific laws are also targeting the structure of the gangs?
Yes, that exactly is the focus, and indeed the law actually contemplates not only individuals who may be providing benefit, but organization and company. So a company could as well be charged. But it seems though that they go a little bit soft on the companies. The companies are only fined, whereas the individual is actually fined and confined. They actually be sent to prison for 10 years, but here the company is only fined. Albeit it's a hefty fine, $500,000, but still, there are other legislations, for instance, such as the Supreme Court of Judicature Amendment Act, which had made provision where the directors, the moving man behind the company, they are held to task. And so that, for instance, that law made provision where, for instance, the directors of a company, when the company is held in contempt, the directors will go to jail. I do believe that perhaps maybe they needed to have in place similar provisions.
So at least the head of the organization can be held accountable.
Exactly. Simply fining those entities may not necessarily go too far. I mean, because seen it as it is that they may be intertwined in criminal activity, the fine may not be so much as a deterrent to them, you know, continuing being in that. Another very interesting provision is speaking about the benefits to provide to criminal gangs. There's also an aspect of it which speaks to persons who derive and who share in the profits. So it's now a criminal offense if a person knowingly shares in the proceeds of a criminal gang activity. So I was thinking, I'm saying, so
how do you classify what a gang activity is?
Well, a gang activity is any activity, for instance, there's a schedule, there's a list of crimes in which are considered to be serious offenses or gang-related activities. Theft of motor vehicle, handling stolen goods, arson, murder, demanding money, burglary, all of these. So for instance, let's say somebody goes on a heist, they do a robbery, and then share out the money. So I'm wondering, so if one of these gang members takes the monies home, their girlfriend, their mother, their wife,
unsuspecting that he just robbed.
Well,
or if I take the TV and I give the TV to my mom.
So those persons could be charged as well. And the law actually, in a sense, provides that in certain respect that you ought to know that the person is a gang member as well. So again, certain onuses are placed on you. So
but this sounds repetitive, because there is the handling stolen goods law, which I am required to know the source of. If somebody sells me a TV for $50 that costs $5,000, that I can be charged because
you should know better that it's
obviously
stolen.
The source. Or one can safely assume that the source.
But handling stolen goods, well, the penalty. This is the penalty here. So person liable on conviction up to 20 years. So it's much more severe.
So handling stolen goods from just, I guess, an average thief versus a gang-related thief. I don't know how you.
Yes, actually,
that would be the distinction.
It's a very, very important distinction. So if you are handling goods from, as you put it, an ordinary thief, as opposed to someone who is involved in criminal gang activity, you have a much more stiffer penalty, which you're facing.
And I don't mean to laugh.
I'm
only saying it because I feel it would be a challenge to make that specific distinction between what we call an ordinary thief versus
I'm looking at two extremes,
thief.
right? So if you purchase the item from a rockhead, as you'd call it,
Yes.
you stand a safer chance under the law than if you purchase the same item from a known gang boss who
Yes.
says, well, I have a TV for sale.
Yes.
We don't know the origins of how this TV came
Yes.
about. The penalties for accepting it from that individual are stiffer than if you take it
Yes.
from the rockhead.
Either one is handling stolen goods,
Yeah,
which is illegal.
because with handling stolen goods, what the law contemplates that there are circumstances where you reasonably ought to know that, listen, these goods are stolen.
Yeah.
Somebody bring a Rolex watch and you actually purchase it for $50. Like, come on. So the offense of handling stolen goods, it could be presumed having been committed, and so you actually you're sharing in the proceeds of that, no?
Okay. You know.
Again, it's to dissuade people from I guess being very cozy with that lifestyle.
Yeah.
I want to bring in an important element which we don't get the chance to discuss as often, which is the witness protection element. The changes that were made. It has been a challenge in the courts in getting people to come forward. You know, I think even speaking to the police sometimes is seen as something that may be detrimental to your safety. And if it does get to the courts, that's where we see things fall apart. The amendments that were made in terms of allowing for witness protection, let's talk about that and see if it can actually prompt someone to say, I know where this person is hidden, I know, or someone is trying to sell me something from the profits of a gang, to really allow for the other laws to take effect. Let's talk about that.
Well, in terms of the the witness protection aspect of it, again, the intent is to try to have potential witnesses have a sense of comfort that their identity will not be revealed, and that the prosecution of an individual will be able to be proceeded with, and without their lives being actually put at risk.
You seem to be skeptical of this.
No. The laws are they're very good on paper. I'm not quite sure how or what will actually work in real time. I for one actually appreciate the difficulties of the police and the prosecution in that respect. And so any laws which are passed to try to assist in assisting the police, in particular that regime of laws, they're welcome.
This does affect rape cases as well as other criminal cases, right? Because I know there's a specification about rape cases too.
Yes, and so for my part, I don't have any particular difficulty or issues with it. Perhaps my other colleagues, they may have issues with respect to it.
Wait, so what does it say though? It says that I don't have my identity. If I inform the police that Isani is, selling drugs in a gang, going to execute someone, or I saw, or I know, and I go to the police, that means he should never know my identity.
There are in certain instances, and that in certain because you have a right for certain information to be disclosed. You have a right, constitutional right for you to actually confront your accuser. That's a constitutional right. But that right, through many years, it has been established by the courts that right in certain instances where it's necessary for the due administration of justice that it can be restricted, it can be limited, and so where, for instance, information is provided that look, this witness might be fearful because if the accused were to know his or her identity, then that witness's life and the family and other persons may be at risk. Then those may be sufficient basis for such a non-disclosure of the identity of the witness.
So it'd be on a case-by-case basis?
Yeah, it has to be on a case-by-case basis. It can't...
So there are two things. One, you don't disclose the identity. Two, it can be a recorded...
It can be a recording
testimony.
And a recorded testimony. It could be as well a
live stream?
Yeah, what we refer to as video link type of... So the person is not in the same room. There is someone somewhere else, and so the person is giving live testimony, so you can hear the person's voice, but again, the person is not physically in the courtroom. And
can it be done by a sworn statement as well? Instead of providing a verbal testimony.
There are already provisions which allow, for instance, like say if a witness were to have given a statement and that witness subsequently dies, that witness's statement can now
can still be used.
Yeah, that has been for many years. That could be used.
Yeah.
So it's just a gradual step in terms of trying to make you see in what the law does and the law requires is that there's a balance. The balance has to be done within the rights of the accused and also the right of and the necessity of the state to ensure that crimes are in fact actually prosecuted.
Yeah.
And so with respect to that balance, what the court looks at to what extent or to how far does the law go in terms of restricting a right.
Let me ask a question. I'll be a bit of a cynic here, right? If there is an identity being withheld, what are the charges for people who disclose this identity? And I'll give you the example. In the police department, they're great cops, but there are some who, you know, if we use the example, things are leaked out of the police all the time, directly to the media and to other persons. So then what is the offense of someone who discloses the identity? Legally, I may be protected. You should not, you, Anthony, who I am accusing, should not know my identity, but Isane, the cop says, well, you know, they give me money. The person is X, Y, and Z, and it's a small society as well.
Yeah, and that indeed would be a criminal offense. But in terms of, I'm sure they would have mechanism in place to be able to track, you know, the potential persons, potential leakers. No,
that's a very live scenario that she has painted, though, because you do have rogue elements within the police department who are in bed with the very same gang element.
Yeah, well,
so that when you have a situation where perhaps the boss wants to know certain information, then the information comes from within the department where it should be held safe and as sanctuary as possible.
They're within the provision of the Crime Code and Criminal Justice Act, they do make provisions that that if the person who assists or facilitates a gang member is a law enforcement personnel, that person as well would be subjected to penalties. But I find that I would have thought that the penalties would be more severe, but they're subjected to the same penalties as an ordinary person. I would have thought that, as you indicated, given the special nature of their position, and they're able to access certain information, and that sensitive information which provided certainly could thwart the police's effort in investigating and prosecuting crimes, that they should be penalized or held more to a higher standard, no?
Yeah. You know, I asked that question because I don't know, and I would really have to ask representatives of the police department whether or not there will be a specialized unit who will work with these persons who whose identities will be withheld. We know in other witness protection programs, even other people in the precinct won't know that someone is under witness protection. That's a whole different scenario.
Yeah. I would think that and the whole issue with respect to these criminal gang activity offenses, there would be
one would assume
there would have to be persons who have specialized training to deal with it and address it, because otherwise it may be a situation where they may not be able to be very effective enforcement.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And if we go through the regular process of doing a statement, there is no privacy. From the moment you walk into the station, you know, your identity is disclosed. We're getting ready to round off the conversation already. It seems like it went by so quickly. Yes. But as an attorney, I appreciate you saying that there are parts of the amendments that you're optimistic about.
Yes.
Can you close off with us talking about what areas we perhaps need to seriously pay attention to, as well as acknowledging that some of the laws will be moving us in the right direction.
Well, as indicated, I do believe that the focus in terms of, you see, because there has always been a complaint that, look, these laws, they only affect, these poor males who clearly don't have the means to be able to buy guns and be able to continue to have this continuous criminal enterprise. So law now addresses and seeks to capture persons who finance these criminal gang activities, and I think that's a welcome and a very important step. Unfortunately, there are some issues with respect to how far the law goes in terms of placing, I suppose, a civic obligation on individuals in terms of requiring certain information to be given to the police and stuff like that. As indicated, the offense of concealing, it puts one in a very, very, very difficult position, having and being aware of the whereabouts of a gang member and not providing that is a criminal offense, a very serious criminal offense. There is a new aspect to the amendment which speaks to, we never had an opportunity to discuss it with respect to injunctions being able to now being obtained for persons who are believed to be involved in gang activity. So these persons may not be charged, but what the court, what will obtain now is that the court could be approached and the court would be requested to grant an injunction to restrict persons from being able to, for instance, engage in certain activity or being at certain places. And the purpose of this, I suppose, is to allow for better monitoring of, again, persons who are potential.
So you mean they can be held at the police station? What
No. It's in terms of persons, for instance, may not be able to attend certain places. They are restricted from, for instance, maybe I suppose going attend certain clubs or from being able to actually go certain places in the country, and they are prohibited from doing certain things. These are, I guess, attempts to try to better have the police address the situation, but again, there are very, very, very wide sweeping amendments. I do believe that they may have been passed with good intentions in trying to address a very, very serious problem that we have, and I agree that all of us necessarily must do our part to try to see how we could address this crime situation, because indeed all of us, any of us at any point in time could become victims, either directly or indirectly, of a crime.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in and breaking down the amendments to us so that we can have a better understanding as well.
Thank you for inviting me again.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about the Chel Mayan products. So stay tuned.